Hello, students. Welcome to Monday Algebra. So for today, first we will thoughtfully respond to the prompt we have for today, which is about when you're feeling frustrated. And I know that can happen with math sometimes, so give some thought to that when we read that and respond to that. Our objective today is that we will learn how to solve multi-step equations using inverses, order of operations, combining like terms, and the distributive property. These are the tools in our toolbox that we'll use. I call that our algebra toolbox. Our essential question today is, what are the steps necessary to solve a multi-step equation? And why is the order in which we do things important? And for today, I'd like you to watch the video, which if you're watching this now, you've already started, and we are going to work the pages that you are assigned. Our exit ticket today will ask us, what are those basic tools in our algebra toolbox? Our homework tonight is homework 2.1, multi-step equations. It's a 2-page homework. It has 12 problems. So let's get started. Here's our do now for today. and it asks the question, or it makes a comment. I feel like quitting when something gets frustrating. Yes or no? Is that you or is that not you? And why? So I want you to pause the video and take a few minutes and think about what your style is when things get difficult or frustrating. So pause the video now and spend a few minutes writing in this space here. Okay, hopefully you've spent some time with that really interesting thought about getting frustrated. I know I get frustrated sometimes. Just as a reminder, this is our exit ticket. We will need to describe the basic tools in our algebra toolbox. So we're going to work on that at the end of our lesson. Let me get the pen. Okay, so that's our exit ticket for today. And we're going to look at 4 basic tools that we're going to be using. We mentioned them already in our essential question and our objective. So let's get started. So our topic is multi-step equations. And we have several steps that we use when we solve a multi-step equation. Roughly, we will distribute Now, that's not always necessary, but if it's necessary, you want to do that soon. You want to combine like terms. Be careful what those terms are. And let's remind ourselves that terms are separated by addition and subtraction, or by an equal sign or inequality sign. And our last step, we solve. We solve using those inverses and using the order of operations. Let's write that down. So we're going to use those inverse properties. And we want to use order of operations. Okay, let's start our first problem. So what I see is 9x plus 1 minus 7x minus 5 equals negative 20. We've got some terms that we can combine here. Let's start with our variable terms. 9x minus 7x is 2x. And then we have our plus 1 minus 5, which will be minus 4, or negative 4, equals negative 20. Hopefully this looks a little easier for you to solve. We'll add 4 to both sides because whatever we do to one side of an equation or inequality, we do to the other side. Oops, forgot my 0 there. So that means that, let's get another color, the positive 4 and negative 4 cancel due to the zero products, zero identity there. So we've got 2x equals negative 20 plus 4 is negative 16. Now what is happening to x? X is being multiplied by 2. The inverse of that is to divide by 2. Whatever I do to one side of an equation, I must do to the other. 2 over 2 equal 1, which leaves us with 1x, and negative 16 divided by 2 is negative 8, for a final answer of x equals negative 8. Now, in order to check our work, we can substitute the negative 8 in every instance where there's x. And if you were to evaluate this, you would end up with negative 20 equals negative 20. And that's good practice. That's very good practice. Get you working hard with those integers operations. Okay, let's look at the next problem. (91) equals negative 7 times the quantity of 3a minus 1. The first thing we need to do is distribute this negative 7 through to the two terms within the parentheses, the 3a and the negative 1, and distributing is simply multiplication. So let's begin. 91 equals negative 7 times 3 is negative 21, and that's an a term, minus, or plus, because negative times a negative is a positive, 7. So I think we want to isolate the a term, so I think the first thing I will do is subtract 7 from both sides of this equation, because I want to save this term for last. So what I end up here with is 84 equals negative 21a, and then I'm going to look at what's happening to a. Well, a is being multiplied by negative 21. The opposite or inverse of multiplication is division, so I'll divide by negative 21. Don't forget your negative sign. And whatever I do to one side of an equation or inequality, I must do to the other side. So now negative 21 over negative 21 equal 1. So that leaves me with simply 1a. That becomes an invisible 1. And 84 divided by negative 21 equals negative 4. And this is a perfectly fine final answer. If you feel more comfortable rewriting with your variable on the left, that's fine. So you can write that either way. They both mean the same thing. So let's go on to number 3. And we'll get a new color to start with. Number 3, 4m minus 5 times the quantity of 3m plus 10 equals 126. We definitely need to distribute the negative 5 through the two terms within the parentheses, the 3m and the positive 10. So we start with 4m. Negative 5 times 3 is negative 15m. Negative 5 times positive 10 is negative 50, equals 126. Now, I think what we want to do at this point, we need to combine like terms. I've got negative 15m and I have 4m. So when I combine those, I will have negative 11m minus 50 equals 126. So at this point, I do want to isolate the term with the m, and I'm going to do that by moving this negative 50 to the other side using an inverse operation of adding. Whatever I do to one side, I do to the other. And negative 50 plus 50 equals 0. Bring down my 11m. And 126 plus 50 equals 176. Now again, I look at my variable and I say, what is happening to m? M is being multiplied by negative 11. So I will divide by negative 11. And whatever I do to one side of this equation, I need to do to the other side. So negative 11 divided by negative 11 equals 1. So that leaves me with simply m, the 1 is invisible. 176 divided by negative 11 is negative 16. And that's our final answer. And we can check this answer by inserting negative 16 for every instance of m in the problem, evaluating that, and we should end up with 126 equals 126, and our answer will check. So number 4 presents a particular problem for us because we have two quantities that need to be distributed. We have a negative 3 that needs to be distributed through the k minus 8, and we have a negative, this is an invisible 1 here, that needs to be distributed through k plus 5. The effect of distributing a negative sign through a quantity in parentheses is that it simply changes the sign within here. So we're going to end up over here with negative k, because this is a positive k with an invisible positive sign here. We'll end up with negative k minus 5. So let's get started. So negative 3 times k is negative 3k. Negative 3 times negative 8 is positive 24. Now, as I said before, the effect of this, without any other number to the right of it, will simply change the sign of everything within the parentheses. So that will be negative k minus 5 equals 23. And at this point, we're going to combine like terms. So we have negative 3k minus k, and this is an invisible 1, okay? Negative 3 minus 1 is negative 4k. And then we've got 24 minus 5, which gives us a positive 19, equals 23. So I will save this negative 4k for our next step, because that has the term in it. Right now, what I want to do is move this positive 19 over to the right side. And I'll do that by subtracting 19. And whatever I do on one side of an equation or inequality, I'll do on the other side. So positive 19 minus 19 equals 0. I'm going to bring down my negative 4k equals 23 minus 19 is 4. I'm going to bring this up over here because I want to talk about what I've got here for a minute. So I'm just going to move it over. Negative 4k equals 4. Students, you see that when we ask the question, what is happening to k, it's easy to see that what's happening to k is being multiplied by negative 4. Remember, please, to include the negative in this term. So when we divide, it's not just by 4, it's by negative 4. And whatever we do to one side of an equation or inequality, we do to the other side. So at this point, we have negative 4 divided by negative 4, which is 1. So that leaves us with k equals, and now we have positive 4 divided by negative 4. A positive divided by a negative is a negative. So that means k is equal to -1. So now that we've done a few together, I would like you to try a few more. Why don't you try 5, 6, and 7, and then come back and we'll see how you did. So pause the video and try the next few on your own. Okay, welcome back. I hope you tried them. Let's see how you did, because this is where you really develop your own set of skills. And I think you can do very well with this. Just take your time. Be willing to make those mistakes. It's okay to do that. So what I have here in number 5, I have a -6 that needs to be distributed through to these two terms in parentheses. Remember, terms are separated by addition and subtraction. So we're going to distribute it through 2x plus 5, but let's start at the right side when we work. So we have 20 equals 10x. -6 times 2 is -12x. -6 times 5 is -30. Now, what can we combine? Is there anything we can combine? We have 10x minus 12x. So 20 equals -2x minus 30. So what's happening here? Here's my term, and then I have this minus 30. We want to hang on to the -2x. Save that for later. Let's work with this constant, this number without a variable. So let's move that to the other side by using the inverse operation to subtraction, which is addition. So we'll add 30, and whatever we do to one side, we know we need to do to the other side of our equation. So -30 plus 30 is 0. 20 plus 30, that's a plus. 20 plus 30 is 50, equals -2x. And those of you who are getting pretty quick at these can already see, I'm sure, what the answer is going to be, because we have x being multiplied by -2, which means we need to divide by -2, because whatever we do to one side, we do to the other. So our answer on the right side, we have x. On the left side, we have 50 divided by -2, which is -25. And again, you can rewrite this as x equals -25. It says the same thing. Let's look at number 6. We have an 8 that needs to be multiplied through, distributed through 2w and -1. Minus 4w equals -116. So 8 times 2 is 16, so that would be 16w. 8 times -1 is -8. Minus 4w. So we don't distribute over here, only what's in the parentheses, equals -116. Now, do we have any like terms that we can combine? We've got 16w minus 4w, which equal 12w. And we still have our -8 equals -116. So this 12w, we'll save that in abeyance for a while. We'll come back to that in a minute. The first thing we want to do is we want to move that 8 to the other side of the equation. So we'll use the inverse operation of addition, and whatever we do to one side, we need to do to the other. -8 plus 8 combine to make 0. On the left side of the equation, we have 12w equals -116 plus 8 is -108. So now we ask that all-important question, what is happening to w? Well, w is being multiplied by 12. And if we want to isolate that w, we need to divide by 12. Whatever we do to one side of an equation or inequality, we do to the other side. we're left with W equals negative 108 divided by 12 is negative 9. Negative divided by negative is a positive. Let's not forget that. Okay, let's pause the video, and I want you to take a minute and please work on 7 and 8. Okay, students, I hope you tried it on your own. That's really the way you learn, and you get really good at these. So this is kind of a tricky problem, number 7, because we have this negative sign outside a quantity, 2h minus 1. So we have to remember it's on the one hand, it's an invisible 1, negative 1. We're multiplying by negative 1. Let's change our color. So we're multiplying by negative 1 here. So we have negative 1 times 2h and negative 1 times negative 1. So that's what's really going on there. I'm going to erase that just because I really want you to be able to see the problem as I work on it. And let's get our colors back. And we'll start, we start here with 11h. 11h. Negative 1 times 2 is negative 2h. Negative 1 times negative 1 is positive 1 equals 118. Now, can we combine anything? Well, I've got 11h minus 2h, with which 11 minus 2 is 9. So I'm combining these two. 11 minus 2 is 9h plus 1 equals 118. So now I want to save this 9h. We'll deal with that in a minute. I do want to move this 1 over to the right side so I can have 9h equals something. So if we have a plus 1, we can use the inverse operation of subtraction and subtract 1. Whatever we do to one side of an equation or inequality, we must do to the other side. So plus 1 minus 1, they combine to make 0. And we have 9h equals 117. So what is happening to h? H is being multiplied by 9. The opposite of multiplying by 9 is dividing by 9. Whatever I do to one side of an equation or inequality, I do to the other side. The 9 over 9 make 1 equal 1, so we're left with our 1h equals 117 divided by 9 is 13. Number 8, it's just a fraction. Okay, we're multiplying 1/2 times 10, and then we're multiplying 1/2 times negative 2. Students, on the one hand, this is pretty intuitive. What's half of 10? Half of 10 is 5. What's half of 2? Half of 2 is 1. If you really needed to, though, you could come over here and you could make a sidebar. 1/2 times 10. You can put any whole number over 1, which equals 10 over 2, which equals 5. Same thing with the 1/2 times negative 2. 1/2 times negative 2 over 1, which equals negative 2 times 1 is negative 2. 2 times 1 is 2, which equals negative 1. So here we go. Negative 25 equals 1/2 of 10 is 5, and that's a positive times a positive. So we've got 5x. 1/2 times negative 2 is negative 1. We saw that over here. And then we've got to deal with this plus 3x. So let's take a look at what we have on that side of the equation. On the left side of the equation, we have negative 25. On the right side, we've got 5x plus 3x. Well, that's 8x minus 1. So let's change our color again. And we'll save this 8x. We'll come back to that in a minute. Let's move this -1 over so we can isolate the 8x. So we'll add 1. Whatever we do to one side of an equation, we do to the other. -1 plus 1 is 0. -25 plus 1 is -24. And we bring down our 8x. Now, we ask, what is happening to x? X is being multiplied by 8. The inverse operation of multiplication is division. Whatever I do to one side of my equation, I do to the other. 8 over 8 equal 1, and I'm left with x. And I can go ahead and put the x on the left side here. That's okay. It's our reflexive property. And -24 divided by 8 equals -3. And that's our final answer. So go ahead and try the last two. Think of this as something positive. We love challenges, okay? So try those, and I'll give you a minute. Okay, students, so here we are. We've got a fraction. It's -5 over 2 times 8 and -5 over 2 times -6. I'm going to make a sidebar. That's what I call it. So I have -5 over 2 times 8, and that's a positive 8. I can put it over 1. 8 times 5, that'll be a -40 divided by 2. And -40 divided by 2 is -20. So that means we have 7 minus 20, and we can't forget this, the r. Now we have, let's change our color. Now we have -5 halves times -6. So -5 over 2 times -6. We'll put a 1 under that. Negative times a negative is a positive. So 6 times 5, negative times a negative, positive 30. 2 times 1 is 2. 30 divided by 2 is 15. So that means -5 halves times -6 equals positive 15. And we still have our plus 2r equals 32. Okay, let's combine like terms. So let's see, we have -20r plus 2r, which is -18r. And then we have 15 plus 7. We have an invisible plus sign here. Okay, that would be plus 22. So we've taken care of everything on the left side. Now we have our equal 32. We can't forget that. Equal 32. Okay, new color. We have this -18r. We'll save that. We'll get back to that in a minute. Let's move this 22 to the other side of the equation. First, you're isolating this term with the variable, and then we will isolate the individual variable. So the opposite of adding 22 is subtracting 22. And whatever we do to one side of an equation, we'll do to the other. Positive 22 minus 22 makes 0. And let's bring down our -18r equals 32 minus 22 is 10. And now we again ask that question, what is happening to r? R is being multiplied by negative 18, so we'll divide by negative 18. When we take this step, don't forget the negative sign, so important. We don't want to be left with negative r, or we'll need to divide by negative 1 at the end. It's just an extra step. So let's divide both sides of the equation by negative 18. And negative 18 divided by negative 18 equals 1. And I'll just move over here so I have a little extra room. And I've got r equals, now let's be careful with this. We've got 10 over negative 18, but I can reduce that. Both of those numbers are divisible by 2. So r equals 5 over negative 9. And that is our final answer. So now we've got a challenge problem. We're going to translate and solve this language into the language of numbers, of algebra. So 5 times the difference of twice a number and 3. That's what I call one of those turnaround phrases. The difference of twice a number and 3. And this is tricky. This is not addition because it says the difference of. Okay, so that, now we've got a comma. Be mindful of that. Something else is going on. Decreased by, subtraction, the sum of the number and 8 equals 13. Okay, so we've got equals 13 over here. We've got, let's use n. So we've got our number here. We've got a number here. So we've got 2 variables. Sounds like we have 2 quantities. So 5 times this quantity, that's the difference of a number and 3. So I'll write that like this. 5 times the quantity, the difference of twice a number and 3. So that's 2n minus 3, because difference is is when we subtract. So 5 times the quantity of 2n minus 3 decreased by, again, that is subtraction language, the sum of a number and 8. Well, that's n plus 8 equals 13. Whew, lot going on there. Did you get that? We're able to tease that out from that language. So first we distribute. We're going to distribute the 5 through to this quantity in parentheses, 2n minus 3. So 5 times 2n is 10n. 5 times negative 3 is negative 15. Remember I said the effect of a negative sign outside parentheses simply works to change the sign of everything in parentheses, because we really are multiplying by an invisible 1 right there. So that's going to be negative n minus 8 equals 13. So now it's time to combine like terms. So we've got 10n and negative n, and that's, again, that's an invisible 1. So 10 minus 1 is 9n. Now we have negative 15 minus 8. Negative 15 minus 8 is negative 23, and we have our equals 13. Okay, that looks a lot easier now. It's getting easier and easier. Every time you take another step, you're a little bit closer to the finish line. So I'm going to save this 9n, and I'm going to move this negative 23 to the other side of the equation by using the inverse property of addition. Whatever I do to one side of an equation or inequality, I do to the other side. Negative 23 plus 23 equals 0. And I'm left with 9n equals 13 plus 23 is 36. And let's go back to our pink. I love pink and green together. I think they're so pretty. So what's happening to n? Well, n is being multiplied by 9. The opposite of multiplying by 9 is dividing by 9. And whatever we do to one side of an equation, we do to the other. 9 over 9 equal 1. So that gives us, move over here a little bit, 1n equals 36 divided by 9 is 4. N equals 4. So how did you do? You have some homework. You have 2 pages. I think it's about 12 problems. I'm sure you'll do very, very well with that. If you could do these, you're able to do those. Let's look back at that exit ticket. So let's describe the basic tools we have in our algebra toolbox. We have using inverse operations. We have combining like terms. We have the distributive property, and always make sure that whatever you do to one side of an equation or inequality, you do to the other side of an equation or inequality. And let's just go back. If you forgot, you can always go back to the beginning. We also have the order of operations. So we've got distributive property, combining like terms, inverse operations, and the order of operations, which tells us that basically we want to do those grouping symbols first before we do exponents. Then we will work from left to right, doing all of the multiplication and division, whichever is first from left to right, and then do all the subtraction and addition. Again, working whichever is first from left to right, because left to right is the way we solve our equations. So you've done a great job today. I'm sure our little whale or tiger is really happy with your work. Keep working hard, students. Keep practicing. Don't take any shortcuts. Put some time into it. And I promise you, you'll be great.